Here's my review of Wicked. Full disclosure, I have never seen the play, so I just went into this having only seen my really only exposure to The Wizard of Oz is really just the original The Wizard of Oz. And I thought this movie was great. I will say, I think, like I said, this movie, I think, first of all, is just gorgeous. Like from the world of Oz, from the trains, just the sets to the Emerald City and the costume designs, everything about this is just gorgeous. It's a beautiful looking movie, and the performances are all fantastic. I think both Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo deserve Oscar nominations. I mean, they're both fantastic, especially Cynthia Erivo. But Ariana Grande gives like a top tier performance as well. And basically, what this movie is about is, of course, an origin story for the Wicked Witch of the West with Glinda and Elphaba, and Glinda meeting Elphaba in this school. And one thing that I did find kind of weird is they're obviously like going for a racism metaphor, but one thing with her being green, but one thing that stood out that was kind of weird is like this is the same universe with talking animals, but then the girl who's green skin gets bullied. It doesn't really make sense. But that's just a minor complaint. And to be fair, there is a subplot with the animals also kind of facing prejudice too, but it doesn't really feel like nearly as many people care about the animals than this girl who's green. It kind of took me out. But that's just a minor complaint because for the most part, I thought this movie was just great. And just this movie is completely a full-on musical, and all the musical scenes are beautiful. Like I said, I mean, Glinda and Elphaba, just these characters together, like, are just great. And whether it's the dance sequences, the performances, the singing is all gorgeous. And I mean, all the performances are very good. Also, Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard of Oz. I mean, who doesn't love Jeff Goldblum? He is great in anything he's in. He's always so funny. He's always so charming. And he's great as just this sleazy kind of con man. Because as we know, if you've seen the original Wizard of Oz, he's kind of a con man. He was a fake. And it's so interesting, though, how you see almost this, how he's like praised in the world of Oz and only just be this kind of slimy con man. And I thought that Jeff Goldblum was just fantastic. I mean, like I said, I'm a huge Jeff Goldblum fan. Jurassic Park, The Fly, so great in anything he's in. And he was just awesome here. I loved him here. And also, this movie is full of other great performances. Peter Dinklage, who voices this goat professor, is also very good. I think that he gave a great performance. I mean, I don't really think there was a single bad performance in this movie. The only minor complaint I have in terms of the performance-wise is Michelle Yeoh. So Michelle Yeoh is not bad in this movie. She is good. But when Michelle Yeoh sings, when some of the other people sing, like whether it's Jeff Goldblum, I mean, it just, when you're in the same movie as like these top tier singers and Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, it just kind of comes across as it just doesn't sound as good because you're not even close to as good. I mean, some people just can't sing, I mean, it just kind of took me out just a little. And I also thought that Marissa Bode as Naresso as Elphaba's sister was also really good. And like I said, I think that she has a lot of stuff to do. And then she's kind of got, not necessarily this subplot, but there is this minor subplot, I guess, with her, where there's this one guy who has a crush on her. And there's just a whole really sweet subplot. I thought that, and like I said, I thought that Marissa was great in this movie. And I'm pretty sure, I think I read this is like one of her first feature-length films, and she was great in it. And when you're just talking about a movie that feels this grand, and also, it feels, like I said, by the time I got to the end of the movie, some people say, because it is a part one. It says Wicked, but it is Wicked part one, and part two comes out next year. And it does feel almost like it, I think even if you, for some reason, even if you couldn't get into the story, I think that this world just feels so vast and beautiful that like it's a world you want to keep seeing, like almost like the world of Hogwarts and the Harry Potter franchise. It's like you just want to look at all of this beautiful architecture. You want to learn this lore, and these costumes are just magnificent. And like I said, I would say like this does one of the best jobs I think of any movie this year of just pulling you into the world of the movie itself. And because this movie also is so long, I I would even say that by the time we get to this scene where like Alphaba's going to meet the wizard, and then we're seeing Glinda want to chase after her, and then she's like, "Oh no, let me come too. I changed my mind." It almost feels like, "Oh wow, we're towards the end." No, we're still got like an hour and a half to go. It feels like, but I didn't really mind it. Like I said, I wouldn't be an hour. It was probably like 45 minutes, maybe an hour, but it does feel like, oh wow, this movie is pretty long, and we're only just now getting into this part. But like I said, I didn't mind it. I still really like this movie, but I do think they probably could have trimmed off a little bit of time. And I will say, when Alphaba finally gets like her full power, I mean, it is just wow. It is such a beautiful scene. I mean, like this entire movie is beautiful, but it's like just the scene itself, from the music to the acting to just like the sound design of this whole scene, I thought was just like so good. And that's one of the things I think I like most about this movie. Like, yeah, like how much it drags into the world, but also just how impactful our scenes truly feel. Because by the time she gets this power, like we've seen Alphaba, we've seen what she goes through. We've seen this dynamic between her and Glinda, which is such an interesting. Their whole dynamic I find would be really fascinating, because it is kind of almost starts off as this kind of, Glinda does not really want to, because they have to be roommates, and Glinda was promised. She almost kind of reminds me of London Tipton in Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, where she's like this stuck up rich girl, and then she's like, oh, I have to share my room, but just seeing them grow as characters is just great. And I think that it's interesting because we know Glinda does grow up to be this good witch. That's what she will eventually be. So almost seeing her go on this character arc, I will say like almost less narcissistic, was just something I really didn't expect, seeing this great character arc in like a movie like that. I don't know why I didn't expect it, but that particular character arc, I just guess I didn't expect. So yeah, honestly, like if you are at all a fan of musicals or a fan of The Wizard of Oz, I would highly recommend you check this movie out. And my own whole experience with this movie also is interesting because from the very first trailer, I would say didn't really look like, it wasn't necessarily one of those movies where like, oh, that looks bad. I thought it actually looked good, but it didn't necessarily look like a movie that I was interested in. But even though I liked the original The Wizard of Oz, but I will say that even in kind of the days leading up to me going to see it, I did have a feeling I was really gonna like it. Like I thought it did look beautiful, and I'm like, you know what, maybe I will like it. And I was right. I thought this movie was great. I thought that it was beautiful. I thought the music was fantastic. And yeah, it's just a really solid movie. But I mean, you do have to know, this is very much a part one, even though at the end of this movie it does feel like, yeah, we have gone through a character journey. It does feel like a full movie. But at the same time, the story is kind of unfinished. So we'll just have to see where it goes in part two. But as of right now, I thought that this was a very solid movie.